Good evening. I'd like to call the, what is the date today? The 25th, July 20th. I'm looking at August the 1st there going, I don't think we're jumped that far ahead. July the 25th, 2022 City Council study session to order. It's great to see so many folks out there in the audience. Thank you for being here. And at this point, I'd like to turn over to our city administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford, to lead us in our meeting. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To set the table for the council tonight, we have a fairly small set of agenda items that we'll cover, but we have a lot of focus areas. I think we've got 5 separate topic areas to include 2 presentations from outside groups. So I would just let you know we've got a lot on the plate tonight, and we'll walk the dog and get through all this. What I've asked in the interest of time is to have the department details provided as a hard copy for you. So instead of having each of the department directors come up and brief you, you've got a hard copy there. And if you have any specific questions, we'll be prepared to answer those as required. So with that, if I could, we'll move directly into the review of our draft city council meeting for next week. And of those items, the 2 that are relevant for council tonight, first is under planning and development, ordinance number 2022-11 to approve the general development plan for the 1,368 plus or minus acre Highland Springs plan development, generally located east of US 25 and south of Oscaga Lake Road, ordinance second reading. So again, we've had this in a previous study session, and we've talked about it and had a first reading of this ordinance. And this ultimately concerns a large tract of land that is closest to Fire Station 3 and is directly north of the Highland Springs middle and elementary schools that are planned for the southern end of that development. So as you look at the development tract, again, the south end of that development is where the schools will be located that are currently under construction. And as we've talked to the developer, that is largely where the initial phases of construction will begin, which makes sense. So you've got residential that's within walking distance of the school and will progress further north. And as you get to the north end of the development, you're going to see more of the commercial and mixed use on those that are closer to where Interstate 20 is and going through that location there. So that's the ordinance that we'll be bringing to you for the second reading. And again, I'll be prepared for any questions, or more accurately, Tommy Paradise, if you have any specific questions about the particular development or PD that's before you.
I don't know if I necessarily have any questions, but I did want to have a little bit more discussion on it if possible. One of the main slides that I kind of focused on from the first study session was talking about the mass grading of that development. And I know that's currently in our code, but I was just curious, for this type of large development, is the concept for all of it to be mass graded for that amount of acreage? And if so, is there anything that we can currently do about it to change that if we wanted to?
I'll defer to Tommy on some of the specifics about that. I believe there are some portions of the PD that are really designed for green space, okay, that I don't believe are going to be mass graded, although there's, if they have to do some prep work to make it, flat green space as far as parks, whatever, they may end up needing to do some of that. But ultimately, for the residential component and based on the current terrain that's out there, and you've got some pretty hilly topography, specifically around the school, and you can see where they've done significant grading in order to make that a workable site for them. That's what they've had to do, and I suspect that for the developer, they're going to have to go forward on a mass grading on at least the residential and some of the commercial component. But I will defer to Tommy if he has any comments about the mass grading piece. Tommy said I did a great job in covering it and does not wish to provide his input, so I think that's what you got.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions about this particular ordinance? Okay. Then we'll go into item number 7 on the agenda, or proposed agenda, under zoning, ordinance number 2022-12, to amend the zoning map of the city of North Augusta, South Carolina, by rezoning plus or minus 10.73 acres of land owned by R. Greg Kenrick and Jimmy L. Martin, Aiken County tax parcels numbers 001-15-02-002 and 001-19-03-001 from PD Plan Development to TC Thoroughfare Commercial Ordinance, first reading. And so to orient the council to the parcels that we're talking about, in your staff packet there, you'll see, and for the audience at home, if you are traveling on Martintown Road and approaching Interstate 20 by exit 1, the parcel that we're talking about is in the northwest quadrant. So it is closest to where the Bergen Road traffic light is. And that's on the northwest parcel. So it's on the exact opposite side of Interstate 20 from where CSRA Pain Management and the fireworks establishments are on that side of Martintown Road, just across the road there on I-20. And there's a listing there for subject parcel in your packet that shows exactly the 10-ish acres that are being requested to be changed zoning from the PD to thoroughfare commercial. Tommy, can I say exactly what they're trying to put there? Okay. And so this request is in regards to a potential Love's truck stop. That's the commercial organization that is looking for this zoning action to occur. So ultimately what you would be approving is the ability for, a Love's truck stop to be at that location. Or at least the zoning action that would allow Love's truck stop to be at that location.
Now, when you say a trucker stop, are we talking just trucks, or is it a gas station? And I mean, because,
You've seen Love, it's 18-wheelers.
but I mean, that's all to go in there, or? So, because right down the street is what, Spring, it used to be Gas Plus?
It can handle both. Actually, I've actually surveyed a number of the Love's truck stops here in South Carolina. And anyone can use it, so to speak, but its prime customer base is really, and the way that these things are built, based on the awning size and all these things, are really to adhere to an 18-wheeler or other large truck to be able to fuel there.
Will it have a eating establishment, like Wendy's, or?
It'll have a Hardee's.
Well,
Hardee's was-
hallelujah. Okay. That's right near my house, and I love Hardee's. Okay.
It will not have a it will not have a Cracker
We'll
Barrel.
have a Hardee's. I mean, okay.
I have a question,
Yes, sir.
several questions. It's 10.73 acres. Some of that, if I recall correctly, has a lot of rock on it. And what do they plan to do with the rock? They're going to have to blast it to clear it? Because it's a hill in that area.
Yeah.
Second thing is, the city spent almost $150,000 on a traffic light down there. Will turning lanes be put there for trucks? Will turning lights be put in for the trucks? And who bears the cost of that? These are just questions that need to be answered somewhere.
These are all fair questions that I know our planning director is eager to answer on your behalf.
Mr. Brooks, as far as the Granite Mountain, as it's been quoted as, the Love's Truck Stop people in the Planning Commission said that their geotechnical people are still studying that to see how dense that rock is and how it can be removed, and if they could make it a workable location. Also at the Planning Commission meeting, he said that they would make the necessary traffic improvements. They would have to do a traffic study. DOT is not going to give them a curb cut on the West Martintown Road because it's right there on the entrance ramp. Excuse me. And so both entrances would be off Bergen Road, and they would put the necessary turn lanes and traffic light infrastructure and all of that in. And I specifically asked him, when you said "we," how do you define "we"? And he said that would be Love's Truck Stop. We would assume the cost for all of those roadway improvements and roadway improvement to Bergen Road.
Okay. What steps do they take to control the flow of diesel fuel, if a tank overflows, because it's in the Fox Creek water basin.
Right.
That's where it drains. So what steps will they take to prevent that diesel and any other oils getting into that
Well,
basin?
the tanks would be underground. So if you had a leak there, it'd probably be off the truck itself.
That's what I'm referring to, yeah.
And public safety would, handle that, and I'm sure that they've got some protocols in there for those kind of leaks, but I'm not for sure exactly what that is.
If I recall correctly, and my mind changes every day, the first time that Greg Kendrick wanted to put a gas station out across the interstate, he looked at that piece of property, and he backed off and he went to the old video poker place there and built that. That's a tight intersection. Where Bergen Road comes in, the lift station's there. Right up the street is Gregory Lake and the gas station that's already there. And their plans have been discussed to put a roundabout near Gregory Lake Road. That would be a horseshoe in the middle of everything
Well, we
there.
actually, we always talk about a roundabout at that exit
Yeah,
coming down.
I just think it's too tight.
Mr. Brooks, if I could mention something else, just full disclosure. You look at the building and how it's laid out for both the truckers and retail, but behind the main building where the trucks gas, there'll be additional parking there, so there'll be overnight parking of the trucks there as well. I forgot what else it was I was going to mention to you. This would tee up, and I'm sure that y'all know this, but this would tee up the next step for them. If you if you rezone it to this, then it's allowed by right. So the next phase would go to the planning commission, and it would not come back to council. If you turn it down, the property could not request a rezoning to thoroughfare commercial for a year. That would not stop a rezoning for like general commercial. I checked the book before I came in, figuring that question was there. So just so council knows your options.
Okay.
Let me ask you, so it's currently zoned PD plan development, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's going to be, normally be mixed-use development. So, I think one of the issues the planning commission had was just a concern of, is that property really set for mixed use? So what we're talking about is rezoning it to the thoroughfare commercial district. And one of the things that, if you look at our code on thoroughfare commercial district, it says, commercial uses of this nature, if they're detrimental to residential neighborhoods and professional commercial zones. So just some of the concerns I have is, I think, Bob, you bring a good point. When those trucks are coming from Columbia down, that is a compact area. And, truck congestion, 18-wheeler congestion is totally different than a car congestion, in my opinion. Okay, so you're talking about a lot of issues with there. And, you look at Bergen, it's all residential, and they're finally happy because they have a stop. They actually have a light. So I think the congestion is a concern, is one concern I have. The other part of congestion, I know we're going to do a master plan, Rick, but my guess is we are going to use the country club property at some point. And if we use that for quality of life, there's going to be more cars going that way. So I think for me, I haven't made up my mind, but I think Mr. Brooks is right. I think congestion's a big deal. That's a compact area for 18-wheelers. And Ms. Pat, they go in there, they shower, they sleep there, okay? So I guess a second challenge I'm thinking through personally is more maybe philosophical, but I guess my question that I've got to come to terms with is, how does this improve the quality of life for citizens in North Augusta? It improves the truckers, but they're coming not from within North Augusta. So, you know, that corridor, we're developing with residential, with the Hamrick Farm. Those are going to be developments that are going to benefit residents, whether it's in shelters or by, you know, actually things to be buying, stores, commercial, whatever that may look like, retail. So I know it's going to help us tax-wise, okay? We got raw land versus, I see that. But right now, for me personally, I'm really struggling to see the quality benefit for the city as a whole, except for our pocketbook, to do that, and the congestion piece. So I don't know, some things on my mind.
And I think part of not going first is everybody gets all the good points, but I mean, I share that, and I think, you know, beyond not to beat a dead horse on the points that are already made, I also, I mean, that's kind of a gateway into the city, and I don't know, sometimes I struggle with whether it's completely my place to tell someone that owns land, you know, aesthetically beyond a certain point what they can put there, but, you know, a truck stop as that gateway entry with all of the other types of development coming in there, to me, also gives me a little bit of pause. I think it makes more sense to me when I look at that as general commercial. I mean, that seems right. I think, you know, it was PD mixed use, but it was also set up as a PD with no development plan with it. So, I mean, can it even really be a PD without a development plan? So it really is kind of in a black hole zoning area as it stands now. So, you know, we're going to have to do something with it. I really struggle with the thoroughfare commercial, even though I understand that it's on a interstate access point and, you know, and a highway corridor, but I can almost get comfortable with that, except for the part that you mentioned, Tommy, and that's that once we pass that, we lose control over the project. And not that I don't trust Planning Commission to make good choices and everything else that goes along with what they do, you know, but if it came through us so that we could be sure that the elected officials are mitigating some of those concerns that you know, everybody else has spoken, I may have a little more comfort level in it, but I'm with Britt, and it sounds like I'm with Bob, and that I'm struggling to kind of make it make sense in my head from those points. You know, obviously we need to do something with it. I'm not sure this is it.
I'm gonna add a little bit into it. I mean, I don't disagree with what anybody's saying, with the exception of one thing. Everybody says it's just for truckers. It's not. If you've ever pulled a trailer or a camper, boat, equipment, they are much easier to get in and out. So, I mean, it's not just going to be people coming off the interstate. You know, people going to the lake may choose to go through there because it is easier to get a trailer, whether it's a camper, boat, whatever, in and out. When I'm traveling on the interstate and we pull over, generally I'll stop at a Pilot or a Love's or something like that. The bathrooms are cleaner, you know. It does have the restaurants and things. So I don't think it's just necessarily for truckers, you know. But, yeah, it is kind of a bad area, really, if everything's coming in and out of Bergen Road. And I'm just curious. I mean, I'd like to see a traffic study done first to see exactly how they're going to be able to get the traffic in and out. That's my biggest concern. I personally, you know, if they want to put a truck stop there, that's fine, but it's the traffic. It's already a tight bottleneck there, and I just don't see how they're going to be able to improve. So that's probably the biggest thing that's holding me off is, you know, how do you get the trucks in and out off of a small little road? You know, if they were going to widen it into a 4-lane or something, but we don't know those things. And then if we do go ahead and change this, then anybody can come along and, you know, without any approval. So that's kind of my hang up, is how the traffic's going to work. I don't have an issue with the truck stop because I believe it does serve better purposes than just for truckers, you know, travelers and whatever else. But just the traffic getting in and out of that, and then the on-ramp to the interstate's right there too. So that's kind of the thing. I don't know if they would be willing to do a traffic study first to see what's suggested. You know, that might be an idea, but that's kind of where I'm at.
And the planning commission was torn, the congestion piece was a big part for them too.
Mr. Paradise, I was looking at the zoning map here. The dark red further down Bergen Road. It's not on that little corner of red. Isn't that where that other commercial development property just went? I don't know what it's called or what it was. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So that's thoroughfare commercial as well, that red?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That was previously part of this same plan development.
yeah. Yeah. Because diagonally across, it's all general commercial.
Yes, sir.
The interstate. So, okay. Well, honestly, I think that we've already kind of set the precedent by putting thoroughfare commercial further down the road. 'Cause you're gonna put that little island of thoroughfare commercial up there, and you're not gonna invite business that, would also support the business at the end of that road. 'Cause it's gonna be a main thoroughfare to get to that other business at the end of the road. I think you're creating an island, so, honestly, I don't think it would work because of the topography and the rock, but that's not up to me. But I think, what we're really doing is open the door for them to go the next step and do the study and really make that decision of whether they can actually put what they want there. But they're not going to do that work until they know the zoning is reasonable. And I think we open the door also for whatever in the future comes, because if they go through and do the study on the geotech study, then they're going to find out exactly what they can do, which it may not work for them, but it may work for somebody else once that study's done.
Are there any other council comments on this item? Well, I appreciate the discussion. I'm glad we had our folks here to talk about it. And so if that's all we had from council members on the particular item, what we'll do is close out our item number 1 under city council meeting. Again, we're going to skip department details as a written product, which has been provided. And then we're going to go right into mayor's matters under focus items, of which we have several. And so the first one we have is a focus on under human resources, which is the employee compensation study by the Archer Company, presentation to council. So I'll have JD give the warm up, and we'll go right to it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is our compensation classification study. It was budgeted for fiscal year 2022. We started this process early in the year, and this is the culmination report, and we are pleased to welcome Ms. Rita Archer from the Archer Company as our compensation consultant, who will give a final report.
Good evening, I'm Rita Archer of the Archer Company. I'm the daughter-in-law of the founder.
Welcome.
People are interested.
Welcome to North Augusta.
Thank you so much. So reasons to do a study, mostly to attract and retain good employees. There's nitty-gritty of matching it to the region, lining it up inside, talking about the administration, but overall it's to keep good people. Company's been doing this for over 30 years. Our founder, Dr. Archer, came up with a system to grade jobs. He calls it job evaluation, and it's a good way to objectively talk about jobs and pay them fairly. It's a balance between how much money you have in your budget and how much you could pay the people. But bringing in an outsider makes it a little more fair, because you don't look at the history and the ins and outs and the relationships between the people, because I don't know the people. To do a good compensation study, you take 2 pieces of information. The one comes from inside the city. We looked at your job descriptions. The department directors and the people that actually hold the jobs went through the job descriptions, updated them, make sure that they were actually representative of what's going on here today. And then we went out and we surveyed.
Ms. Archer, if you can just make sure you speak into the microphone, it's for the folks here and on the live stream, just, if you don't mind, just speak in the mic.
Okay, so the second,
Perfect,
oh, I
thank
hear
you.
it now.
Yeah.
The second piece of information comes from outside the city of North Augusta. We used comparable organizations all across the state and concentrated on the organizations close by. This is the approach that we took for the study, but the takeaway from this slide is the client input. It's not a Archer study completely, it's a North Augusta study. So we came back to the city a couple different times, and this is the final time we're coming back. So the study is done in my mind, but it's your study, and you could send us back, because now we have all the data collected, and to tweak the different parameters to make it perfect for you is easy. So many of you have heard this before, but job evaluation, pretty much every job could be compared to every other job through the three basic functions of a job, either use of data, the working with other people, or the use of machinery, computers, tools, things like that. And then Dr. Archer went through and he thought about all the other things that go into a job, and the verbal and mathematical requirements of every job, and then physical requirements, situational and functional reasoning, the skills derived from experience and education, and then finally the environment. So once those job evaluation points are totaled, there's kind of a job order hierarchy that's created. But the final higher complexity jobs have what we call responsibility factors. So however many people you control, and budgetary responsibility, and then finally time span, planning time frame. So that's where a lot of the higher complexity jobs get a lot more job evaluation points, and there's fewer jobs that fall into the higher categories. This is a little bit about what the computer system looks like. We call it a matrix point factor. Matrix just means the rows and columns, and you could see the first column would be those three functions that are obvious in every job. And then the different attributes go across the top. And then finally, the responsibility factors are multiplied on top of that. And Dr. Archer did a lot of studies early on before he even implemented this anywhere. And he came up with a certain number. It's called mathematical modeling. He was an engineer, and he just did so many studies and then backtracked it and found a number that worked. So this is a little map of the state of South Carolina. The little red stars indicate the cities that were included in the market. They are cities of similar demographics, so similar number of job titles in the city and similar number of people. And then the big circles are the counties. Seems like North Augusta is bordered by 4 counties. And so same kind of jobs in the county and the city, so those were surveyed there as well. The picture to the right is just what it looks like online. We actually contacted the HR directors in these different organizations and asked them to give us answers to the questions that we asked and to give us actual numbers for the jobs that are similar to those that exist here. And then finally, we came back to the city and we said, this is kind of the benchmark jobs that we selected were the same ones that were used in a previous study. North Augusta's been working with the Archer Company for several years. But generally, when we pick these benchmarks, they're kind of spread throughout all the departments. We try to cover as many employees as we can. So if there's a job in a grade that has more employees, we would pick that one over one that has 1 or 2. We try to get one from every grade, and we try to get jobs that are easily matched from city to city. So if you have jobs here that are like hybrid jobs where one person wears one or two hats, or two hats or more, that even if we ask them, how much would you pay for that job someplace else, they don't have a job like that, so they don't know. And this is some more screenshots of what the survey looks like. There's a list of all the different HR directors and their email addresses. We just wrote them, and we gave them definitions of how the jobs exist here. And we said, do you have a job like that? And if you do, how much do you pay for it? And then we downloaded all those different numbers and totaled them up, and we came out with a plan. This is a little bit more of how it looks. Each dot on that line represents a job. If you look at the x-axis, that would be job evaluation points, and then matched to a salary. And you could see that as the jobs get more complex, the salaries increase. And they don't exactly form a line, but then we use the computer program to make what's called the line of best fit. That's through linear regression. The computer just does that. But then that market line becomes the midpoint of a pay plan. And a pay plan for a city government, pretty much, you don't want to pay the market rate when you first hire somebody. You start out at a minimum, and we set that 20% below. That's kind of standard. And then when you make a pay plan, the recommendation is that you want to be to the mid or to the market by a certain reasonable amount of time. And we are recommending 5 years. So somebody should come into the city starting at the minimum, if they have the minimum qualifications, move towards the midpoint, and at the 5-year point, be at the market. So that's where the merit budget comes from, is the percentage below where you start divided by the number of years that you think is reasonable to get there. And those are the kind of parameters that could go into the budget, and you could say, well, we can't afford a 4% merit increase. We could afford 3. That'll get us there in 7 or so years. Can we still attract and retain good individuals? You have to make a decision like that. So this is just a graphic of how the study comes together. We have the job evaluation point scores, the salary survey, the computer program, and it comes out with a pay plan. And that's something that everybody's familiar with, just the numbers that if you're in a certain grade, this is the minimum, the midpoint, and the max for that grade. This is a little picture of the jobs that were included in the benchmarks, and a big picture of how the graph comes together. But when you do a pay study like this, these are the deliverables that you're looking for. You want the new pay structure with the grades and pay ranges, each job assigned to a pay grade, and then recommendations. You've been following these kind of recommendations for a long time already. That's why you're a little further ahead than some other cities, because even with the inflation, all you need to do is meet this year's inflation, because year over year, you've been keeping up with the cost of living adjustments as Archer recommends. So this is just a page out of the report with the new pay grades and their recommended salaries based on the market. I'll be happy to take questions.
I've got a question, if you don't mind. Go back, you made a comment about something about, just say it again because it went past me. You said 20% below the market for new hires? So you're saying if the market's paying a new hire $15 an hour, help me, I'm just not following that. I think I'm
No, so the market rate for, just pick a job, like an accountant, maybe $70,000.
Okay.
When the accountant is new to North Augusta, they're maybe right out of college. They don't have any experience. And so you can pay them a little less than the market.
I'm with you now. You answered my question, okay. All right, thank you. That's what I need clarification. let me just say, I'm not sure if council needs a few minutes to look at this, just want to be clear about this. This information is just receipt of information, okay? So if you've got a particular question like I did about something Ms. Archer has said, that's what she's here for, but we are not having a conversation tonight or discussion of anything about, we're going to have budget conversation later, so we aren't getting any of that tonight. Just wanted to make sure. So if you got questions about their method and what she's gone over, let's ask her that, but we aren't going down the rabbit hole tonight about compensation.
So anyway, all the information is in our computer system, and if you need to change any of the parameters, it's very easy to do, and we can get you a new report with whatever you think is going to be right for North Augusta. Yes, sir?
Can you identify on page 4, the circles where you pull from the market values?
Page 4. Let me see.
How does the city pay compared to the market?
Is that the counties?
Yes.
I think they looked at Edgefield County, Aiken County, Columbia County, Georgia, Richmond County, Georgia.
City of Aiken too, right?
Right, but you said the circles, so the circles are the counties.
Oh, okay. The stars then, okay.
Okay, so they're all, they're listed on page 2 of the executive summary. I could go through them. They're alphabetical. Aiken, Anderson, Beaufort, or is that Beaufort? Casey, Clemson, Conway, Fort Mill, Fountain Inn, Georgetown, Greer, Hilton Head Island, Malden, Newberry, Simpsonville, and West Columbia. And then the counties are Columbia, Edgefield, Richmond.
The stars are the city and the circles are the counties.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, Ms. Archer? All right. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your time tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our second focus item under Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, which is the Riverside Village Boat Dock Update by Cranston Engineering.
Thank you all for having us here tonight. I'm Lance Cheeley, the landscape architect on the project and the project manager.
Good evening. I'm Tom Dunaway with Cranston Engineering. I'm the civil engineer on the project.
Good to have both of y'all with us.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Just real quick, wanted to kind of take everybody through where we are, what we're doing, and look forward to the feedback. So the boat dock site location is right down in Riverside Village, adjacent to just east of the new amphitheater. Well, I call it the new amphitheater. It's been there, but and right behind SRP Park. So we selected a location you can see here in these photos that picks up and starts the project essentially where the greenway, concrete greenway ended and the older asphalt trail started. So you'll see in the next slides we're able to not impact the work that was done as a part of the amphitheater. So. You'll see again, we hope to do a little more concrete replacement if the budget allows. So, but you see kind of where we're proposing the boat dock in these photos. And so in our proposed conditions, just simply we'll have a site civil plan, which you'll see in just a second, as well as a landscape and hardscape plan. We'll dive into those things in the next slides. So our site plan shows our boat dock. Our boat dock at the point that it interfaces with the greenway is about 60 feet long along the greenway there and 12 feet wide. You can see the 6-slip boat dock that will connect there. There'll be a 50 feet long gangway that will take you down to the boat slips themselves. We're grading this and proposing this in a manner that really minimizes the amount of grading along the riverbank there. We are trying to be as friendly as we can with our friends at the Corps of Engineers to work through that permitting process and really minimizing our footprint there. You'll also see kind of to the right, the hatched area In working with Tom Zeser, Rick Meyer, and Carl Waldauer, we're hoping that, fingers crossed with the budget, that we're able to replace some additional portions of that older asphalt trail. And we will set up a bid alternate so that it can be at the discretion of the team to how far we want to take that. So.
And I'll walk you through the landscape and hardscape plan. We have circulated this through the city of North Augusta for comments and responded to those comments on the landscape plan. So the trees here and plants shown are kind of in line with what the city of North Augusta would like to have from a maintenance standpoint, something that's easy to maintain, looks good, and can keep up to the great standard that the city of North Augusta already has. For what we're calling the boat dock plaza, we do have some samples of what that would look like here. We would propose this as an addition, a 12-foot addition to the greenway. So the outside edge, the closest edge of the greenway to the river currently, would be extended 12 more feet. That would be a concrete plaza with scored concrete in this diagonal pattern, which would be, a relatively economical way to approach it and is a good look aesthetically as well. We're proposing the Trex grid guard mesh railing with a drink rail. That's similar to what's at the in the outfield of the Easy Go Pavilion at SRP Park. So trying to tie those elements together a little bit to make sure that everything is cohesive. We're showing some benches around the area, the whole perimeter, and then a centrally located bench closer to the greenway. We anticipate, a decent amount of people using this plaza as waiting for a potential boat dock, unloading, waiting for people to their parties to come together, and also just to come down as a place to overlook over the Savannah River. So we want to have a lot of benches and seating there to accommodate that. The bench that we're proposing is a relatively simple concrete pillar with a wood top to bring in some natural elements, but also to stay in keeping with some of the architecture that we have existing at SRP Park. And the shade structure, which is a relatively thinly dashed line on here, but it's a rectangular structure. And what we're proposing is a pre-engineered metal canopy that will provide us some shade in the hot summer months and also be open, a little bit more when the sun is low in the southern hemisphere in the winter. That'll give us a little bit of sunshine that can get through, so it's not a one season or two season type of facility. And that is shown, as you can see, in the shade structure area. That would have we're proposing a structure with one-sided columns that are cantilevering that roof out, so we don't have anything that's going to be a hazard in the greenway, and also not limit the amount of foot traffic that we can get through here as we expect to.
How wide is that going to be? The shade piece?
Shade structure, it will be at least 12 feet of cover.
Okay.
To match the width of the.
12 feet of coverage, you can sit down.
Is it 12 feet of length or width?
12 feet of width to match the width of the plaza, and about 30.
20 feet is the one we priced. And that 12 feet may get eaten at a little bit into if you have to pull the post on the other side of the railing there. That's correct.
Are you planning for electrical service to be in the new pad?
That's something we're working with Parks and Rec on, determining how much of that we need to bring in for either phone chargers or lighting and things of that nature. There's lighting along that area of the greenway, and so I think it does make sense to bring some limited electrical in.
Okay, thank you.
And there would be lighting on the dock as well.
Scored concrete, what is that?
It's a plain broom finish concrete with a saw cut joint in it that makes the appearance of a cross square, diagonal.
So it's better so people won't slip on it, so to speak?
Sure, it's mostly a decorative finish. The broom finish is what you would have on a standard concrete sidewalk that has a nice texture to it that is typically found to avoid slippage. The scoring pattern really is more of a thing for decorative looks. It's an economical way to get a look of a paver or something like that.
It looks good.
Is there any plans for like a kayak slip or kayak entrance into it, or is it all motor-based for this dock?
Certainly, that exact discussion played a lot into where the shade structure is preliminarily shown, so that when folks were carrying these kayaks over their head, they weren't encountering that overhead obstacle. So.
Good question.
These are just some examples of the type of pre-engineered canopy structure that we can get. These are all shown as one-sided cantilevered structure. That means you have one column, and the roof kind of goes out over that, suspended from that one set of columns instead of a traditional two-column layout. Again, that will give us a lot more flexibility in where people can walk through this particular plaza. Those could come with seating as part of the structure. They can be built, as you can see on the picture in the upper right, with a wall that could function as seating. We have some flexibility in how we approach that, but at this point we are going with the seating that you saw in the earlier slide. So we do run into a little bit of a challenge. I probably should let the civil engineer talk about this, but we are in the floodplain. We're below the 100-year floodplain line, so a lot of some of those things become difficult to do. There is a water fountain, if you recall, at the top of the Sharon Jones Amphitheater. So that would be there if that was all we could have. That would be the closest one.
And so just the final few slides here showing the proposed dock, showing a 6 feet wide. That way we felt like two folks walking side by side could come down the gangway comfortably. As well, and also the dock itself has been, we originally contemplated that at a 4 foot wide dock, and working with Parks and Rec and with the boat dock manufacturer, widening that to 6, I think, was a good call. So again, 6 slips with a finger on the far, which will be in the slide on the right-hand side there, where a boat could potentially slide on the inside and drop off to the left there. Details from the boat dock manufacturer as well.
And like, Tom, is there any picnic tables? Like, if you get off your boat and want to have a picnic lunch?
No, ma'am, we don't have that in the plan right now. We could certainly entertain that, but it's, really, 60 feet long by 12 feet wide really isn't that big of an area.
Mm-hmm.
And, we could certainly look into that as Rick and team desires, but really not that big of an area when you finally get out in the field and look at it. And I'm not a boating person, but
I know I guess that's all we're getting is the 6 slips, but will there be you can only be there so many hours? Because, 6 boats, maybe that's a lot of boats for the river, but, will that be something? Like if I brought my boat in and stayed 8 or 9 hours. Huh? Okay. And then the mayor, we had that temporary boat dock for the, I know it's temporary, but.
This is upgrade.
No, I know, but she was talking about her kayaks.
Yes.
Could that be something a little further down?
Well, they can get on from there.
Is it still there, that temporary?
They'll be able to get off from this,
Okay.
right? Yeah. I just want to make sure, so as far as the shade structure, the one we're looking at putting in is not going to already have seats under it like this one here, right? So it's going to be available to folks on handicap with wheelchairs there. They're going to be able to come in there, right?
As far as the handicap accessibility, yes, they would definitely be able to come in there.
Well, this one right here shows, benches already like it's connected to it, so we aren't having,
Yeah, so currently what we've shown in the site plan is independent benches of the shade structure. So our theory being, we'd really like to have some flexibility in it. If we get the benches with the shade structure, if for some reason pricing came in a way that, did not allow us to do the shade structure at this time, we would still want to provide that seating. So having those elements independent give us a little bit of flexibility in how we can approach.
We need to have flexibility for folks who aren't going to be able to sit in this actual bench, yeah.
Mayor, this was me.
Oh, hey.
This was designed for that accessibility
That's
piece.
what I thought. I just wanted somebody to say it.
And to piggyback on Ms. Pat's question, that's also why there are no tables. This isn't necessarily a place where you're going to sit and lounge like maybe you would at Beck Park at that shelter. Keep in mind, too, that just a hop, skip, and a jump down the greenway is the amphitheater. So the shade structure really is designed for, the group of folks getting off of their boat, waiting for each other, maybe a person or a couple people sitting there just kind of taking in the scenery. But yeah, it's more of a short term.
We want them to go into Riverside Village and spend money in the restaurant. That's right. We don't want to bring their own lunch,
Real quick, can you go back to the gangplank one? Back one more, yeah, right there. About what angle is that gangplank going to be at? I know we're making it ADA accessible. I mean, my dock when the river's at normal level is like this. So, do we know about what angle or degree that would be? Because if we're trying to get wheelchairs down there, under normal,
That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a little misleading. ADA in this case is speaking to the width, not the slope. And obviously, as the river rises and falls,
Oh, yeah.
the angle of that gangway is going to change. And so this is not designed for ADA accessibility.
Okay.
In terms of.
I'll tack onto that. It would not necessarily always, depending on the water level, meet applicable ADA guidelines for sidewalks and accessible routes. ADA codifies that a floating dock gangway does not have to meet those criteria as far as the slopes.
Mayor, you can't have your own slip. I know you want.
I had a question, if we could maybe consider looking at alternate, adding, I guess, back on the backside, potentially where the ramp and the dock come together or something. But can we consider maybe looking at pricing one of the floating type accessible kayak ramps, so it makes it easier to get in and out? And consider making that an alternate of some kind, maybe one or two, because it'd make it a lot easier for people to get in and out.
Cost is something, we do the best we can with in this current environment. This is an updated cost. It's an opinion of our probable construction cost. And it's very volatile right now, and I'm sure you guys have heard that. With a grain of salt, please.
This isn't so much of a question for you guys, but it could Jim or Rachel, whoever, remind me. I know that we've got several different potential funding sources for it, some state money and that sort of thing. I know it's not $358,000.
Not even close. Councilman, I think we had a budget set aside for the design work, which is what you see before you today. I believe we had another set of money that was probably, I think, closer to $100,000 that was really set aside for the dock, structure itself, and then any additional funding, especially about the overlook, which you saw before you, which has the sunshade and a number of things that are driving a large part of this cost. That's going to have to come from a different funding source, and that funding source may come from a couple of different areas, and I'm certainly prepared to talk about that in the future of where we might be able to pull that from. I think a likely fund source could be ARPA to be able to move forward on that, because that falls under kind of a tourism aspect, and that is an allowable use, also under governmental use for how we've moved it into our O&M funds. But I don't know if Rachel had anything else you wanted to add on that.
Specific numbers are $100,000 for design and engineering and $150,000 for the dock and the piles, and you can see that's line item number 10. So the boat dock, the The design, engineering, everything's covered with the state, water tax money, anything above and beyond is our responsibility. So that's where it's important that we have everything itemized and we can see, so we can know what to add, what to remove to fit the budget of our choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, so with the line item there taken, if you take line 10 kind of out of that mix, then you're still about just a hair over $200,000. That would be the city, pure investment.
That's good. Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll move on to item number 3, unless there's any council discussion or questions. It's that time again for a quarterly update under economic development, Riverside Village at Hammond's Ferry, and Linda Williamson will be giving us our quarterly update about Riverside Village.
Good evening. As Jim said, I have our second quarter update for Riverside Village. As we've mentioned before, we do these voluntarily. The decision was made by council back in 2019 to provide a more timely update on the financing related to the Riverside Village. The first paragraph you see here is discusses that this is the voluntary disclosure, and this language was recommended by our bond counsel to include. And you'll see this paragraph on all of our updates. This update has been published on EMMA, which is the Electronic Municipal Market Access. This update, along with previous updates, are available to view at emma.msrb.org under North Augusta Public Facilities Corporation. We are also required to do our annual filing, which we complete after our audit, and we have done that in May when the audit came back. And several tables from this update come from our audit, and I'll be able to point out the changes that we were not able to update you on in our first quarter update. All right. This first chart is a table that is included in the statistical section of our annual financial report. And this table has been updated to reflect the assessed values of all real and personal property for the 2020 tax year, and also the 4 prior years. And taxes that are assessed in the 2020 tax year are collected in our fiscal 2021 year. All right, this table is our tax rates, and this table didn't change from our quarter 1 update. And also our millage rate hasn't changed. And this next table also is in the quarter 1 update and updated. It is the copy of our 2022 general fund budget, and we're required to publish this. All right, the next 10 largest taxpayers in the city. This table is found in the back of our financial reports, and it has been updated with the most recent audit information. And you can see that there's a couple Riverside Village properties that continue to be on this list. All right, the tax collection record of the city. This is another statistical table from the financial report. It's been updated with the information from the audit. The prior report showed, and you can see that on that second line, where we only had collected 91% of our taxes in tax year 2019 and fiscal year 2020. And as you can see, we collected the $889,000 in a subsequent year. That would have been fiscal year 2021. So that was where we had paid, Riverside Village had not paid their taxes, and then they did pay them in fiscal year 2021. So now you can see that all of our collections to date are up in the 99 percentile and in line with all the other years. This table is part of the audit where our debt is disclosed in our financial statements. It has been updated with the 2021 audit information. This includes our capital lease vehicle capital leases for our vehicles and equipment that we do at the city, as well as any debt pertaining to Riverside Village, the public safety headquarters, and our utilities. And this table also reflects the refunded bond the city did in April of 2021 for the Series 2014A and 2015A bonds. And this table shows our general obligation bonds. We do have one. It's for the public safety headquarters. And again, since this bond was done through referendum, we still have our entire borrowing capacity of 8%. This information actually remains unchanged from the Q1 update, but you will notice that the unaudited note on 2021 has been removed since the item is now audited. This is our local hospitality taxes. Again, the 2021 number has been audited, but it remains unchanged from the unaudited amount previously reported. For 2022, we've collected over $1.1 million in hospitality taxes, and we're up about 7.3% from the second quarter of 2021. So we are seeing a trend of hospitality doing well in the city. And as a reminder that city collects a 2% hospitality, but only 1% is designated toward that debt service. The accommodations tax. This table represents all accommodations taxes collected in the city, but currently only the accommodations taxes collected on Crown Plaza are dedicated to debt service. But for revenue reporting, we look at accommodations in total. We do have a 3% tax rate for the city, and our current collections are actually up 45% from Q2 in 2021. So we're up to a little over $169,000.
You said 45%?
Yes, sir. The next table we have is our tax increment revenues. This includes all TIF revenues collected. So the TIF that comes from the county with those intergovernmental agreements with Aiken County and the school district are included. We also have a payment of around $350,000 that we pay to the county as part of this agreement, and this number is reflected in that number you see before you. And we fulfilled that obligation this quarter for that. The next table represents our mid-assessments. There has been a change from the previous assessment rolls previously adopted with an appeal on the stadium deck. So the mid-assessment tax year for 2021 being collected in 2022 has increased almost $25,000 to that $771,758 figure you see. Again, of those mid fees, we've collected the $78,000 in Q1. We did not receive any more mid payments in Q2, but a 15% penalty has been added to all those tax bills. Oh, did I go too far? Parking revenues. This chart continues to look a little different from what we were used to seeing. We are still going through discussions with the hotel developer, as well as the management. We continue to be what we feel are our obligations while we're ironing out whose obligations are the hotel owners and the management group. So you will still see a negative number, but we have continued to include that additional language to reflect these negotiations. This is our final chart. It reflects the stadium revenue. Admissions tax is still missing at the moment. We usually receive those second quarter admissions tax from the Green Jackets in August. So I expect you will see that number included in our third quarter update. You will see that we have added the rent and that we received in April from the Green Jackets. And those corporate naming rights are due in December, so we normally see those at the end of December, so you'll see them in the Q4. And that is all I have for you. Do you all have any questions?
Just under the admissions tax, say what you just said about that. When do we normally receive that?
So the when I was reviewing. We usually receive our first check from the state in August.
Okay. We don't really ever have an idea what that's going to look like?
We don't.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
I had a real quick question.
Sure.
Back on the TIF revenues, was the jump from 2020 to 2021 because of the reassessment that the county did?
Development.
Most likely. I don't have the answer to that. I can
Yeah,
I
and I
can
mean,
get
it
that
looks
for
like
you.
first and second quarter, I mean, it looks like we're on track to,
I believe also, Councilman, the change in value of the TIF also reflects new construction within the overall TIF district.
Okay.
So I believe that counts for some of the River North, Hammond's Ferry expansion. I believe that's what's driving a lot of those changes,
Okay.
Along with the assessments.
I mean, I was just looking at, it looks like the first and second quarter, we're already at 2.4 million and still 2 quarters to go, so it looks like it's doing a lot better.
Yes, sir.
All of these are. And just, and where are we as far as, we've made our, just give me an update, what you shared at the facility meeting, where we are as far as our bond payment?
Okay, we currently have money in the bank to pay the November interest payment, money in the bank to pay the May interest and principal payment, and we have about, I think, $400,000 towards our November payment at this time without any additional revenue.
Linda, very good, thank you. Great job, actually.
Thanks, Linda. Next will be followed for a focus on under Engineering and Public Works, Greenway Bridge Replacement from Tom Zeser. And to set the stage for what Tom's going to talk to you all about, what really we're looking for from the council is guidance. We have a plan to be able to fund the Greenway Bridge replacement. And so ultimately what Tom's going to show you here is a couple different design options and really are looking for guidance from the council to see which way you want to go. And then we'll go ahead and package it up for a resolution, for a funding resolution to go ahead and move forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tom.
So right, a couple of months ago, I brought to you various variety of options for the replacement of the bridge at Waterworks Park. And so we're just, with the consensus from council or the instructions we understood was to look at a wholesale replacement of that bridge and really we're just focusing at this time on the aesthetics of the bridge itself that we're considering. Sorry. I'm good. I'll just hunker down. So yeah, we're really just what we're bringing to you tonight is just a review of the 2 different design options that we're recommending for consideration for the bridge replacement. So again, the original structure that I had presented was more just the most economical bridge section. Refer to this as a box truss or rectangular truss. This particular manufacturer calls it the connector bridge. It's just their name for it. And there's just a image of what that bridge would look like, similar to that. And then this is what they call a keystone bridge, referred to as an arch truss. This is the type of bridge that the Greenway Bridge over Martintown Road is this type of bridge, as well as the smaller bridge over the entrance to Hammond's Ferry at Crystal Lake. There's a picture of that bridge. So that design style is more in keeping with bridges that we have traditionally used on the Greenway system, and so council asked us to bring cost information on that type of bridge to you. So we've firmed up various costs associated with the project, and so this table shows you the costs associated with each type of bridge. There's again, the connector bridge is a more economical structure. That's just due to the fact that it's less steel involved in the bridge. Structurally, there's no difference. All other costs associated with the bridge, design, construction are equal for either structure. And so here you can see we got about a $30,000 difference between those two bridge structures.
The Keystone Bridge has a longer longevity, correct? Like on how long it will last compared to the connector bridge?
No,
No?
no, equal lifespan.
Just the
Both-
way it looks.
Just the way it looks.
Councilwoman, I'm sorry, so when we did the first presentation, we talked, also about wooden options. And so what I asked Tom to do is narrow this down just to the metal bridge that are the connector type bridge and the Keystone Bridge for your consideration.
Got it. And then is there any consideration for the asphalt connecting to the bridges into this budget? Because it's currently crush and run, correct?
Correct. That was just a temporary surface while we made these decisions. Yes, the entire greenway section that we would call the Waterworks Greenway, basically from this bridge all the way down to the parking lot at Riverside Boulevard, that entire greenway section is in need of need of complete reconstruction. There was some funding in the current year budget that Mr. Meyer had requested and was approved. We have deferred expending that money towards any reconstruction of that greenway until we make the decision on this bridge.
Jim, you want a consensus from us, right?
Mr. Mayor, what I'm looking for really from the council in order for us to go ahead and put together a funding resolution would be, your design or the council's design choice, whether we want to go with the connector bridge or the Keystone Bridge, and then we can move forward on our funding mechanism, and we would come back to the city council with a resolution for approval.
Okay. Well, I'll just start off. I mean, the Greenway's an asset for us. To me, my vote's the Keystone Bridge. Kevin, what about you?
Agreed.
I was gonna go.
I was gonna go
Connector
cheaper.
Road because it's
I can't believe it.
Well,
because it's not in such.
It's
a
not
high
in such
visibility
a
area.
high visible area like, when you come into Hammond's Ferry, you see that. When you come across Martintown Road, you see that bridge. I mean, I'd be willing to bet you many people don't know where this bridge even is. And that's the only reason why I was thinking,
I just
save
think
$30,000.
with the developments that are going to be happening down Buena Vista, I mean, I see it more for the people using it more so than people riding by.
Right.
Is my take. I just think we're going to see the thing there. That's my take.
Well, yes, I definitely see that section being used in the future more. I was just.
You have the butterfly
I think
garden
either way
there
doesn't
and the
matter.
dog park there too, so that kind of drives people to that area.
Either one is fine with me.
And not something you'll hear come out of my mouth very often, but it's only $29,000 to keep it consistent. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a 10% increase, and it keeps all the bridges relatively consistent along the route. I mean, I'm in reality okay with either of them, but when you look at, in the scheme of things, what's a relatively minimal cost difference to keep.
Well, I guess
So
an
your
aesthetic
your
consistency.
vacation trip to Vegas went well, I guess.
Yeah, right.
that money, baby.
I mean, consistency is probably something we need to, look at moving forward. I know we had discussions, not really on bridges, but the mast arms at all the intersections at some point in time. But, I'm just being cheap, but I'm fine with either.
Fine with either one.
Okay. All right.
Either one looks great to me.
Yeah. Okay. So our consensus is Keystone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I would also tell you that as we went through this process, we also down-selected some of the width options. So this would be a full width option. This is the 12-foot width option. So if you go on the Greenway and you cross the Martintown Ridge, that's the same width as the Greenway at that span, at that location. And so this would be the same. So again, we just put this down into a metal bridge and type. So what you'd have is a full width bridge option at that cost. So we'll go ahead and put together the funding things. What I would tell you is I would envision this being the final expenditure of capital project sales tax 1. We still have a little over $100,000 in that fund. And so that would close out CPST 1, which I think is a good thing for the city. And then the remainder would be likely from ARPA. But we'll put together a funding package and bring that to the council for consideration.
Is there any estimated time for completion? Or rough estimate? before Thanksgiving weekend?
Next year?
Yeah, once we get authorization to proceed, I mean, obviously, the first order of business would be to order the bridge. I mean, that's going to be the longest lead item. We're probably talking about 4 months or so for delivery of that bridge, which obviously we would proceed with construction, the foundation and the approaches, and do all the preparatory work for the bridge itself in the meantime. So, yeah, 4 to 6 months.
Tom, good job. Appreciate all your efforts on this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Council, for your guidance. And last but not least, we've got the focus item for public safety facilities update. So Mark Costner from Capstone is going to come join me up here and answer all of our great questions. So we've got 2 separate items, and I'll go ahead and I'll start working on this, which is really the fire station. So Mark's got a one-pager that's all together. I think you'll have a hard copy of that, and if you want to scroll down, and I'll just cover some of the highlights associated with the building. So obviously this building was supposed to be completed back in the January timeframe at 365 days. There were 2 major issues associated with this facility. One was a delay in the delivery of the pre-engineered steel associated with putting the building up. That was over a 90-day delay. And so that had some significant impacts early on. And then we also had delay in the specialized roofing insulation that went along with this building as well. That also went into the 3 to 4 month time frame. So that's why where we are today. However, I can report that we've actually started the concrete pours. There are 3 major concrete pours associated with this facility. The first one happened this morning, and the second one is slated to happen later this week, with a third and final concrete pour looking at next week. We have IT lined up to do installations on both the 1st and the 9th of August. And then we'll have at some point in time thereafter the installation of the parking lot itself, and then finalizing landscaping and working through some of the punch list items. So ultimately, I'd hope for a operational date of Labor Day weekend. I suspect that is going to slide probably 30 to 45 days, but we're targeting a completion date in October. And really what I mean by completion is an ability to have a ribbon cutting ceremony with the council, with an operational fire station with dispatch of fire engines out during that time. I wanted to give you an actual date. Mark said I shouldn't give you a date. I was going to go with 1 October, but you wanted to give me a little extra wiggle room. So I think it's fair to say we'll have an October date, and what I hope to do in either August or September is be able to advertise at that time what the actual ribbon cutting date will be, preferably 30 days out. That current project is listed at $3.93 million. We still have a few items that are still at large, one of which really is I've been holding in abeyance funding for a traffic study. So in order for us to put flashing yellow lights on Martintown Road, and I don't envision necessarily a string light, but just like the poles that you have with the flashing yellow lights going into a school zone or something along those lines is kind of more of what I'm hoping to be able to accomplish over that scope. But as we get closer to the end of the facility, we'll be able to release the funding associated with that DOT traffic study. And then once that's complete, we'd be able to release other funding for the actual devices themselves. We'll still have an operational fire station prior to that traffic study being done.
I tell you, I get response from folks all the time about how nice the building looks. It's turned out great. So citizens are very pleased with it. So good job.
Are there any other questions about the station? Well, I look forward to having an open firehouse and a ribbon cutting ceremony and an open house for our citizens to be able to go through and see the facility for themselves. And then also what you'll see based on Chief Thomas's briefing with his captain's reference, the movement of the fire equipment. You're going to see, different apparatus at different locations. So namely the aerial vehicle that we have at Fire Station 3 will move to Fire Station 1. And then most of the other items at Fire Station 1 at the headquarters now will move up the hill. Be able to do that. Again, that gives us some great flexibility and provides better coverage for a number of our citizens. With the current fire station being as close as it is to the river, you lose a lot of your coverage ring associated with that. So moving it up the hill onto Martintown Road definitely increases our coverage capability and response time overall for most of our apparatus. So I think overall this will be a good item for the city, and we're excited about it. So subject to any of your questions about the fire station, I'd like to go ahead and move into the public safety headquarters. So that is the latest and greatest rendering. So again, as we talk through, there are three major design phases. You have DDs, SDs, and CDs for design development, schematic design, which we've completed, and now construction documents, which we're in now. And so ultimately, I'll give you an update on where we're at now with the current location and then what our strategy is as far as procurement. So ongoing, we have asbestos remediation occurring at the two legacy facilities there that abut Georgia Avenue and Observatory Road. I believe the first facility on the corner has been completed, and that asbestos crew is moving on to the second and larger of the two homes to move forward on asbestos remediation. I've had some discussions with the Arts and Heritage Council, and they have a desire to potentially pull some of the items on the outside of the facilities, and so I will propose a resolution for approval for the council to do that, to allow for that arrangement, if you will, so it's not just random people going up there and pulling things off the building, that we'll have an organization we have a relationship with that can go ahead and hold on to those for historical purposes. I think we're going to have some other dialogue about the overall status of the building, and so ultimately, again, the city is not looking to put CPST tax dollars into those facilities, so either they're going to be removed by an outside party or they'll be demolished, is ultimately what we see with those facilities, but they are not going to stay on the Georgia Avenue location going forward. The other thing I would talk to you right now about is the overall procurement item. So what we did with the fire station is sealed bidder option, where essentially you put out what the job requirements are, and a number of local contractors will come to you and say, here's our overall best price, and that's how we got SD Clifton as the bidder. And likewise, I think that's how we also got Spratland and Sons for Fire Station 3. But as we move into this particular project, I've gone out and done a number of market survey and talked to a number of cities here in South Carolina and also across the river. And for a more complicated project, what I've gotten from a number of the city managers and construction experts is that going with the CM at risk approach allows you a little more flexibility and allows you to keep your project on time and deal with the flexibility of just the technical feasibility of the project itself. And so ultimately, our procurement code allows for a CM at risk option that's written into the procurement code. And so what I would envision doing is this summer moving forward with an RFP for selection of the general contractor for managing the overall project. And then once that general contractor is selected, and that would actually come back to council for approval, you would have to agree with that selection. And then after that, we would have that general contractor work through the rest of the construction documents and construction design work to help us work on the overall cost of the project, and then see what value engineering can be done to keep it in scope and time. So what I'm here to tell you today is I don't have a price tag for what the facility is going to be. What I can tell you most definitely is that it's going to be more expensive than the $10.5 million that we've bonded that facility for. The good news is we are receiving quarterly tax revenue from CPST4. So the bond plus the intake is going to allow us to move forward on the project as we go into this time frame. So ultimately, as we're here today, I just wanted to make sure the council was aware of the status of the legacy structures, of our procurement action, which will be a CM at risk approach, and the fact that the next council action that you will have will be the selection of the general contractor under CM at risk, and I bring that action back to enter into a contractual arrangement with that general contractor. I believe I'll have to come back to you, Mr. Mayor, for a second action, which is to set the overall budget. So in order for us to tie into CPST4 to set what that top end number is, because you will have to make that, you as the council will have to make that decision, because what that does in effect is anything over $10.5 million potentially moves other things down the list of CPST4. Yes, sir. Mark, did I get that right, or I miss anything?
Do y'all envision this breaking ground maybe first of the year?
I would like to at least see a bulldozer on the site by Christmas, even if, and so that may be one of the discussions we have is, do we de-link the site prep from the rest of the design, as far as, what we can move forward on, as far as phasing the contracts? I'm okay with that idea, but we'll have to do some more analysis to see if that's the most cost-effective way to go.
Okay.
But I'm targeting, a Christmas present of having something moving on the site at that point in time.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Jim, what's involved in just mowing the site to make it look neater?
Well, I think after we finish the asbestos remediation, I think part of that's going to be the discussion of what's the final disposition of those buildings. If we're going to remove those buildings, i.e. somebody's going to come and take those off our hands and move them, then after that point in time, we can do something else with the lot. If the answer is no, and then we're just going to take the buildings down, then we can go ahead and basically remove the buildings, and in the process of doing so, we can do some more maintenance on the lot itself. But as we have our crews out there now doing the asbestos remediation, I really didn't want to have additional work done in and around those facilities until we had a good DHEC report card on being able to go forward.
Is there a plaza for the flagpoles?
I believe we have that on the current site plan that I can provide you another copy of. I think we showed that at council a while ago. And so where the overlook is, that's where we envision the flagpole going.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Good job, thank you.
All right. Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, this concludes the staff portion of our presentation for tonight's study session. I turn it back to you.
Okay. All right, very good. Any final comments from anybody, Mr. President?
Yeah, I just wanted to give kudos, Carl, Rick, another peach jam, well done. So kudos to y'all and your staff.
It was packed. Who else? Bob? Yep.
Mr. Zeeser, could you give us an update on the Mayfield Woodstone connector?
So for the residents at home, are you referring to the Northern Greenway extension?
Yes.
Okay.
I really don't have much of an update beyond what I gave 2 weeks ago. Again, the city took bids on that project. The bids were significantly over all of our estimates and our grant amount. So we are, again, revisiting the project to determine an alternate means to construct that bridge or that Greenway extension. And we will, once we have a final recommendation, we will bring that to council as soon as we have that ready.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
I have one more for, this would be for Tommy, I guess. Contractors are beginning work at 5:30 to 6:30 in the morning, running bulldozers and running trucks in and out of the neighborhood. And I thought we had an ordinance where they could not start before 7 a.m.
Excuse me, I believe that,
If we do, how do we enforce it?
I'm not for sure if it's 7 or 6, but I would call public safety. They're out there. They could go by there and talk to them. Make a complaint.
What neighborhood is it? Oh, yours. Okay. All right, good. Okay, you got your answer?
I got it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, I don't have anything else either. So thank all y'all for that, and we stand adjourned.